welcome back to the Art Archaeologist channel. I'm Corey and thanks for joining me for today's Tips and Tutorials Tuesday. I'm doing these Zentangle gem dangles. that's what I'm calling them. Zentangle gem dangles. Little tough to say, but these are so fun and really neat. What I'm going to do with these is I'm making up a bunch of them to scan and put in my Etsy store, and I'm going to put them in for sure as PNG files and probably as JPEGs as well. Some of the watercolor paper, actually this is Canson Mixed Media I'm working on. I've got little spots that are a mess, so I'm just going to clean all that up in Photoshop. So if you do this on a project, just be careful. I'll dip my hand into wet paint and you just want to be mindful of all that stuff. So I did this really fun little arrow, and then I tried this little black outlining on this one, and this one's okay. I like it all right. I love doing this squiggly line on some of the strings, and then I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. Look real close at this bead. I want to show you how to glaze that look in and pull some highlights and add different colors to your beads to make them really pop and look three-dimensional and like real beads. So here's that sheet. This will be part of the kit in my Etsy store. And I really like these browns and blues together. I'm very partial to earth tones. They're my favorite. Here's another page I did. This page was a lot of fun to do. And there's a tip about this. This work here is pretty tight and pretty small. And I struggle with tight work now. I like to do it a little bit bigger to make it easier on myself. So this I put on, Canson Mixed Media paper too, and I just made them less of them and made them further apart so I can make them bigger, because it's very easy to make these really small in Photoshop, but it's not, of course, as easy to take a small one and make it bigger. So there's some advantages to painting these bigger. It depends on your project, of course, you know. So now this one is on Arches hot pressed watercolor paper, and this paper is really nice. It's a little more pricey, so I'm choosing to go ahead and work on the Canson Mixed Media to make a bunch of these because I have plans for this paper pack. But here's what I mean about, see that little, you can get all these really beautiful little textures. Watercolor is so unique like that. This will also be in the kit. So let's get started now. All you need to do is, and this paper is, it's 8 by 10, I believe. Yep, 8 by 10. These little sheets I'm working on are 8 by 10 Canson, and all I did was I took my ruler and I lined it up to 6 over here because it goes 0, 6, 0, 6, so it's 8 inches, and then I just went every 2 and drew a line, and then I made them uneven at the bottom. I drew a line up top. Okay, here, let me show you exactly. You just go psh, psh, psh. And then you come down a little further, not too far. You want to leave room for your big beaded ends on one end. And then you just line up your ruler to those 2 lines and draw very faint. You really want to draw faint and light when you're doing these, okay? So that's how you get it started out. And then what I do is I will just come in and I will sketch in. Let's do a teardrop shape here. Try to go lighter than that. Sketch in my bead shape. And that's a little too dark, but you get the idea. And then here's a little trick I'm going to show you. On here, If you look real close between the beads, there's little black marks, so you can clean up a lot of stuff when you go to draw in your dangle. You can clean up in between the beads. So let's go ahead and put some more teardrop beads on here. I don't want stuff to be perfect. I don't care about it being perfect. Let's throw in one more big one here. I do try to get a pattern going. I can tend to get locked into that. Let's throw in a rectangle bead in here. Let's put another one here. Okay, and then I like to make these beads that are little rectangles like that, little ovals. And for the most part, before I start a bead, I will erase the area that I'm making the bead and the little end beads, just to get rid of those pencil lines. I should have done that. I'm just trying to gently rough in these shapes. You could do whatever. I mean, the ones I'm doing today are pretty basic, and that's because I just wanted to get a video out to inspire you guys to try this, and then take it, you know, your imagination's your limit. Sky's the limit with this. I'm just going real basic to get it out there. Okay, so that's what I normally do. See how I have no bead here yet? I'm just going to come in and do a little bit shorter of a rectangle bead like so. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space on the top and the bottom where it's been erased. And let's do a little round and around. I have a pencil set where I've got pencils that draw really dark and then lighter and lighter, where you have the whole numbered set. And I don't know where they're at. Otherwise, I'd be using a light one for this. So if you have a nice pencil set like that, it's better for this than using a dark leaded or charcoal. You really don't want to use charcoal for this, because you don't want the charcoal to bleed into the watercolor, and it'll contaminate your colors. So you want to guard for that. Okay, so basically that's how you do a strand. And then if you want to do, all I do is, I'll just show you real quick. I'll just take a part of the, let's just do it right here. Take a part of that, same way, erase part of it, come in, and I start out a little smaller on my little weird pulse thing. And then I get bigger, and I'm kind of going in and out. And then I get a little smaller and down. So that's how you do that, and you can just draw that in, and then when you get to the end, you'll black it in with your marker. Okay, so that's the drawing part. Now I've got this sheet. I drew these up last night, and I drew this crystal, and I'm not really a drawer. I'm not a drawing drawer. So I put this crystal in, and I messed up the bottom, and I erased it, and I marred the paper up. So it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and paint it, and because I'm putting them in Photoshop, I'm lucky. If this were my project, I might be in some serious trouble because of that. So on these beads, let me show you. See this brown one here? I've put some gold highlight on that. And same with this, these are really great. These green beads here, they have a gold sheen, and the turquoise bluish aqua beads too. So you can just use a little bit higher quality of a metallic watercolor set, but I'm using my Kiritake for the metallics. I've got a couple in here, and it's called Kiritake. Here's what the cover looks like. But I'm really partial to this set. I use my sonnets on Sonnet Studio. This is my absolute favorite set. It's just a little palette. It's what, 24 colors. You get your little sheet included. I got these on eBay, and then there's the set. I like the Kiritake, but I love the dots on it. Okay, and I'm using a round brush. You want to use a round brush that comes to a very nice point. I've got a dirty water here and I've got a clean, and that really doesn't matter to me. I'm always dipping in whichever water's closest, which isn't the best. So I've mixed up a few of my colors just playing around. This one ended up being raw sienna and turquoise, and I got this gorgeous olive green. And this blue, I just kept adding a little tiny bit of brown to it. Ah, la la la, which brown? I added burnt umber to this. I did mostly blue, but I wanted to really tamp it down. This is just raw sienna. And then I made a rust color with red and brown, and here's a little orangey color, and then this purpley brown color. It was made with the violet light and the burnt umber. I got this really beautiful purpley brown color here out of that. So I'm gonna probably be working out of these a bit. Okay, you want to wet your brush first of all, and then get some pigment on there. Let's go ahead and work out of this. I'm going to grab some of this green. Just darker pigment in the edges there. And then all you're concerning yourself with is you want to outline your bead. Okay, this is why it's so much easier. My hands tend to cramp every now and then. So working really small and tight is a challenge for me, okay? So I'm trying to work a little, trying to remind myself, please don't draw tiny stuff that needs to be painted. All you want to concern yourself with is getting a coat on, and it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, okay? That's just fine if it's not. There's that. You can come out, you want it a little bigger, just outline it a little bit more. Fill that outline in with some more color. That way too, when you're working a little bigger, if you get a little wild, you can fix it. Okay, so there's that big, beautiful gem. And then what I normally do, I'll show you a couple different things, but what I normally do is I had green pigment on my brush and I just washed it off. I will keep that green pigment on and go around and paint other beads, but let me show you something else. Now I've just got water on my brush. Here's another really fun way to watercolor these beads. Go ahead and paint in your bead with water. And I like that green, and I'm going to go with a straight. I'm going to do a green and brown, real earthy. I'm going to go for this burnt umber color straight out of the, oh, and I put it on my water. See, dorky. Okay. I am a messy artist. Okay, burnt umber, and I'm just going to drop that pigment into that water. The problem with this mixed media paper, I'm finding, the watercolor doesn't necessarily travel as well as it does on actual watercolor paper, but it's still fine. You just have to go in and kind of fill it in. Look at how beautiful that is, that brown. Now I want continuity throughout this strand of beads here, and I've got a bunch of pigment on my brush. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to paint a little bit for you guys so that you can get an idea of how to do this. It's very easy. Your supplies, you probably have everything you need already to do this. So my pigment got a little light. I'm going to do deep jewel tones on this strand. I really like those deep colors. I spin my work all the time. This will keep you from dipping your hand into a wet bead that you just painted. Spinning helps. So, now I got too much water. I'll dip my, go to get clean water, and I'll get it out of my dirty water, and I'll go to clean my brush and clean it in my clean water. I'm kind of a mess. I've got to work on training myself a little bit better with my watercolors. Okay, so I've got these gorgeous brown beads. I'm going to come in here and go ahead and hit this one. You can also just keep passing these colors to your other strands on your page, like come over here and do some brown and come over here, but then your palette tends to get locked in. I will do that a lot. I've done it on a couple pages. So now I've got all those brown beads. Now I don't want brown on brown, but I'm going to go ahead and make these round ones. I've still got all this pigment on my brush. And so I'm going to separate them out. And I'm going to hit, see now these little beads with the line through them, the pencil line, when you're using a dark color it's fine, it gets covered. But if you're trying to go for that luminescent look, just draw your lines so lightly if you can. As light as you can. Okay, so now it's all separated out. And then I'm going to want to add a third color here because I've got this big green gem and then this brown bead. So I want a little something to shake that up in there. And I'll tell you, black does a beautiful job too. But I'm going to go with this green. I'm going to go with green. It's called Green Deep. And it's a real beautiful, you'll see. And I've got a lot of pigment on my brush here. And while it's another green, it is a different green. So, and just drop your color in. I've got my brush is super wet. But I don't want to lose it all because then I'm just going to have to redo it. So I want to come offload that onto these other beads here. Sometimes if your brush is just too wet, you're just going to have to take some off on your paper towel. And always want to have a paper towel sitting with you when you're watercoloring for sure. It's as important as your brushes. It's one of those things that I always forget until I've got everything out and I've got my brush full of paint and then I need it and don't have it. Okay, so I'm just doing this whole strand, these colors. And then what we'll do is I'm going to show you a couple other steps with this while this dries. This is just your base coat, okay? Watercolors are magical even on a base coat, but just wait until I show you a couple really cool tricks. Okay, so all those are base coated in, and they're already really pretty. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry for a minute. We're going to go over to this one. Now I left this one blank so that I could show you real quick how I do it. I use whatever I have. I'll just use my Sharpie fine point, ultra fine point, and then I've got my graphic Pigma brushes, and this is a paintbrush pen, which I can't use it on this small stuff. And then this is the kind of thick Sharpie. It's between a regular Sharpie and a fine point. And I'm running out of ink on this one, so just use whatever you've got, really. Come in and draw your string. You don't have to use black. I like black. I like black the best, but you can use whatever color you wish. Okay, and then you just want to put in your initial string. Okay, and then it looks really unfinished at this point. It's not popping. So then what I do, this just looks like a string going down in there, and it looks like I drew it in there, right? So the way to solve that is just pop a bead there, put a round black dot, makes it look much more finished, and then I go down and I do little lines. between my beads, and I will match them up, or you can exaggerate them out like this. And I just add black spacer beads to my strands. I'm definitely going to be experimenting more with these. I want to do a lot more Zentangle on these. But, you know, this is a new little medium. Watercolor is pretty new to me. I guess I'm a rookie with watercolor. But the more I use it, the more I fall in love with it. I could see myself 10 years from now doing nothing but watercolor. But I say that about everything. I'm only going to do this medium for the rest of my life. And then a week later, I'm doing something entirely different. Look at how that just makes that pop. I'm going to put a tiny little black bead on the bottom. It really pulls your strand together beautifully. Okay, so that's how you do that part. Now let's go back to this one. Everything's dry. I'm going to show you a couple tricks here. Now the first trick, you've already got some variation in these because that's just the magic of watercolor. So what you want to do is go into your clean water, wet your brush, wipe off most of the wetness on your paper towel so that your brush is just damp, and then come in and scrub little chunks of pigment out of your beads. Look at the difference of that bead just from taking the tiniest bit of green. And then I want to come in, I kind of want to smooth it out a little. I don't really like too sharp lines. And I'm going to pop in another little lighter spot here. By pop in, I mean I'm going to pull pigment and spin your art. It helps me immensely to spin my art. I don't know if I could do it without spinning it. So look at the difference. Now you have this automatic sheen on that bead and you haven't even added another color to that. So let's go ahead and do these bigger brown ones. And I've already got parts of it that are darker and parts of it that are lighter because of my first coat, the way it fell. So I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to just take pigment from the lighter area of the bead. Look at that. It completely transforms that into a three-dimensional little thing. Oh, yippee, my brush broke. It's alright. I'll just glue it. Look at that. So fast. And then there's a little more pigment on that top one, which looks very nice in contrast to taking almost all the pigment out of that side. Very simple, amazing way to get some light. And you can use masking fluid. Masking fluid is my friend. I love masking fluid. But this is more subtle, and there's still a little bit of pigment left in your lighter spots. So it's a lot more, it's just a lot more subtle. In nature, when shiny stuff is, when the sun is shining off of it, it can be very blunt and very sharp lined. So either way is fine. If you like the masking fluid, go for that. That is something you can use too. Now I'm going to show you the other little trick, and let's go ahead. I'm very partial to this color right here. It's number 90. And this set has, I show this in every video. You guys that watch my videos are like, come on, Corey. But somebody watching this video might not have seen the others. I invite you to. It's the gold color. There's gold, there's bluish gold, and there's white gold metallics in this kit. I'm going to go with the coppery looking gold, the darkest one here, down here, this one. I guess it really doesn't look very coppery. So I'm getting my brush wet and getting a little bit of pigment on there. And then I'm just going to simply come in here and run some of this gold color kind of along the edges of where I just lightened it, and let your intuition guide you on this one. There's really no wrong way to do this. Whatever you pick is you're gonna be amazed. You can go right over your light spots with that gold and completely transform that into a gold spot. I'll just do it on that one there so that you can kind of see the difference. And I've got plenty of water in my pan of color, so I'm just getting more pigment. Now this is where you're going to get sharp lines when you're dropping in color onto dry paper. Okay, these lines down here are really sharp and blunt, and I don't want as much of that on this. So what I'm going to do here, let me show you what I mean. See that top one, how blunt that gold is? And how blunt? Okay, so easy fix. La la. Just get your brush wet, cleaned off, and damp again. And just come in and scribble around the edge of that with a damp brush. Look at that bead. It ends up giving it this ethereal, beautiful look. Seeing that I'm a little off. And a lot of my beads, they're not perfect, which I actually prefer that. Sometimes it bothers me, that's a little blatant right there, but I like them to be not even and kind of off, because the hand blown glass beads are off. They're not perfect. And oh, I used to know a gal who did that, and I wish I would have been paying attention more at the time and asked her to show me. But she did some gorgeous work. I used to buy beads from her, and what a hard-working gal. All of us artists, we work. Okay, so that's how you do, and you can keep layering up and glazing colors as much as you want on your beads. Let me take this rust color here that I've got. Let's go ahead and make this crystal this rust color. I've never painted a crystal before, so let's try it. I think what I'll do is just do parts of it with this dark. Like up here would be lighter, and down here is going to be even darker. So let's try something real quick. And then over here, these are going to be darker. And I'm imagining that line in the middle is going to be lighter. So, okay. Got all that in. And then all my edges are wet, so I have to leave that alone. So let's go into this. I love this blue. See, I'm using my clean water to clean my brush. Ugh. Sometimes I just don't know if I will ever get it right entirely. Probably not. So while you're waiting for stuff to dry, just bump over to another area. I love this color. Mix your colors up and you'll be amazed at the earth tones you can pull out of a bright colored set. It's just amazing. I'm going to go ahead and make this diamond down here this blue color as well. I like to do my outline first. And I'm not concerned if this looks bad or if the colors are sharp on the inside or any of that, because it's just my first coat and I can reactivate this. Okay, so there's that. And then still got a little bit of pigment left. See, I like to spin. Keeps you out of trouble. I don't like to reach over. I really worked hard on training myself not to reach over my own work, and especially when you're doing stuff like this, because you know, it takes 10 seconds to paint in a bead and then you're off doing something else. Now I've got this rust color here, so to kind of counterbalance that, what I want to do actually is take the same rust color. That orange next to it is nice too. I just want to get the tiniest bit of pigment on my brush, and I'm wiping off a lot of it. Then I'm going to come in here with that lighter shade, well, that's too light, of the same color, and fill in those areas that were left. That is kind of how I would guess a crystal to be. And then I've got this puddle of color up here. Now that I'm done with these, let me do this real quick. Now that I'm done with these lighter areas, I'm going to pull this puddle down ever so slightly on that line I drew, just to kind of pull some dimension out of that bead. And then I wanted to drop in the tiniest bit of darker pigment up here. And let that dry again. So if you just give yourself a chance, I've never painted or tried to draw a crystal before. I don't know why, I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but it's true. There's my very first one. So just let yourself, oh, I want to paint a flower, do it. Oh, I want to paint a building, I want to draw buildings, I want to paint a river, I want to paint the Eiffel Tower. The worst that can happen is you won't like your first one, and the greatest thing that will happen is you will learn so much by just getting your stuff and trying. So I think I've taken you as far as this can go, because I don't want to make you sit here and through this whole piece here. So grab some paper and use whatever you've got. I just happen to buy Canson a lot because I like the weight of Canson. I like the flexibility and the bendability of Canson. And I love watercolor paper, but I do not like how thick it is. It's hard to do stuff with it. Canson is much easier to collage with and make junk journal pages with, so I like the Canson for that. And it holds watercolor just fine for me, so I hope you give this a shot. It is such a treat to do this. Look at how pretty those brown beads came out. I tossed a little bit of gold on there. There's the green one. And pulled up some pigment, and those two tricks. Add another color when you're glazing, or add a darker color of the same shade, and then get your brush just damp and pull some of that pigment out, and you will have the time of your life. This is truly a blast. So here's this one all complete, and I just added gold to each one of them like we did before, and took some of the pigment back, and then did all the black work with my pen. And I wanted to show you this one all finished up. Came out neat. I like it. It'll be part of the kit. The link will be below for all these. And I'm so glad you showed up today to check this out, and I really hope you make some of these. They're super fun. I definitely, like I said earlier, you might want to go ahead and make your beads a little bit bigger, because the smaller the harder to paint, and the harder to see all the detail too. So glad you showed up today, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button below and hit the bell notification. And I've got a lot of really fun stuff coming up on Tips and Tutorials Tuesdays, and also on Grab Bag Saturdays. So thanks for coming by, and have a great day.